Set this up for me, Caleb. Tennessee has nothing to lose against Georgia, and we get Josh's thoughts.
So, Josh, I want to know if your thoughts on the state of the Tennessee program may be where the players are right now, or if you think this is the state of the Tennessee program, which is this. Does it really matter if Tennessee finishes the season 8-5, losing to Georgia and losing a bowl game, or if they finish the season 10-3? I know people say recruiting, but given the fact that we all know what's happening next year, we all know that Nico Iamaleava, the quarterback created in a lab to run Josh Heupel's offense, basically, will start the season next year. And it's like it's almost as sure of a bet as it was when Clemson entered 2015 with Deshaun Watson at quarterback, or when Florida entered 2007 with Tim Tebow starting at quarterback. Because of that, does it really matter what happens the rest of the year for Tennessee? Is there any reason to even care?
Well, so are you asking based on how it will affect next season?
Yes. And recruiting in the offseason and everything like that.
Yeah, including all of that, I would say definitely. This is a huge recruiting weekend. If Tennessee beats Georgia with those recruits on campus, I don't think recruits typically pick a school based on the result of one game. But if you have Jordan Seaton and Kai Bates and a few others see Tennessee beat the number one team in the country and Tennessee gets the headline afterward, Tennessee ends Georgia's winning streak and they get back-to-back 10-win seasons, that helps in recruiting. That helps in the transfer portal, which is going to be vital to get the players necessary to help Nico have success next season. The mood of the program, I think one of the challenges Josh Heupel will face if they lose Saturday and they're 8-5 in this scenario of the question is, okay, people aren't going to be happy about it. How does a head coach deal when adversity hits? It's easy when everybody loves you and nobody's questioning what you're doing. It's hard when people start to wonder, okay, did you have luck? Did you win with the previous coaches' players? This season was disappointing. Next season better not be. Makes the offseason a little bit tougher. If Tennessee beats Georgia, there will be some, oh, well, what happened at Missouri and Florida? I get that. But overall, the fan base will be thrilled if they've beaten Georgia, if in back-to-back seasons he has ended the losing streak against Nick Saban and then against Georgia, and they win 10 games back-to-back seasons for the first time in so long. Yeah, I think that would mean a ton. Does it have a huge impact on what they're capable of doing next season? Not necessarily, but I think it does help with the personnel they can have on next year's team, and they'd much rather find out what that personnel would be after a 10-win season versus after 8-5.
Yeah, and to Caleb's point, I mean, obviously an upset would be huge, and we're not the players, we're not the coaches. We can look at it realistic. They want to go out there and win, and anything else would be a disappointment. But as far as the growth of a program, if you hang tight with Georgia, if this is a 4-point game, Josh, it almost feels like a win in some.
Are you on moral victory mode here?
I'm a champion of life. I am a champion of life.
Yeah.
So perhaps, I mean, really, when you look at it at the end of the day, let's say this was a last-second Georgia comeback, then you would at least go to prospects, playing the recruiting game, and say, Tennessee's on par with Georgia.
Yeah, sure. Tennessee could sell that. I do think a huge part of this game is how does Tennessee play? Just like losing to Florida, Missouri. It's not that bad. Losing to them by a combined 42 points, that's really bad. So how does Tennessee respond after an ugly showing at Missouri? If Tennessee loses this week in a bad way, if it's halftime and fans are checking out, that is a lot worse than if Tennessee loses in a game that they have a shot to win in the fourth quarter. But I just think there is a lot that can be gained from winning this game in the future. I think how does a coach deal with frustrated fans and negative talk? I think that's a real thing. I think we've seen previous Tennessee coaches. Well, I don't think we're as good as Josh Heupel at coaching and building and a lot of things, but we saw how pressure affected them. We see that all over the country. It's not just a Tennessee thing. That's a big-time college football deal. And it's much easier when you're winning to avoid that than if you're losing to try to figure out how to deal with it.
Josh, on that note, I wonder how you think, because we haven't seen it yet, how do you think Josh Heupel will respond if Tennessee goes 8-5 at next year's SEC Media Day, do you think he'd pull a Butch Jones, and not the Champions of Life stuff, but do you think he would pull a Butch Jones where he would oversell what Tennessee did? The year was like, you guys don't even understand how great what we did last year was relative to program history. It was just amazing. Or would he come out and say, this isn't the standard we want to play yet, we expect to be better this year?
Or would he just push Elijah Herring onto a helmet?
Yeah, I think Josh Heupel would talk about the standard because I think that's real. Like Butch Jones, I think reached a point where he felt like he wasn't appreciated enough for what he had done. I don't think Josh Heupel would have that feeling going into next year. There still would be, like to your side of the conversation, Caleb, the transition to Nico will create excitement. There will be optimism about what he's able to do, but I like, to me, the bigger deal is what does he have around him? What does the offensive line look like? We'll see who comes back. There's this extra eligibility the number of guys have, but even with that, if they don't look good on Saturday and they're 8-5, there might be some players that announce they're coming back that a lot of fan reaction will be, okay, well, why is it going to be different next year if you were the leaders of this year's team? So that's another reason that if you beat Georgia, you have this belief that will exist. But asking about media days or the offseason conversation, I think Josh Heupel will continue to push that he expects Tennessee to compete for championships, not to go win 8 or 9 or even 10 games in the regular season. He'll be proud about what they've accomplished, but he will talk about expecting more next season if 8-4, 8-5 is the result this season.
Smoky Mountain Red says brick by brick, and I say amen, brother. Always brick by brick. From what you hear on your show, you take phone calls, you talk in the community. Do you think that Tennessee's fan base is down to the point where I see social media tickets are on sale left and right? What is the worst case percentage of Georgia fans that could be in Neyland Stadium? And I know this is eyeball test, but is it 10%, 20%, 30%? Does it get anywhere close to the Alabama game in Philip Fulmer's last year where I felt like it was 50-50 or 60-40 Alabama?
Well, first of all, this is a good Jimmy Himes question. He's much better at predicting and definitely breaking this down.
For those that don't know, he can tell you exactly the exact number of how many people are in the stands.
Yep. He has mastered it. That's not an exaggeration. 20%. I mean, we're talking 20,000 plus Georgia fans at Neyland Stadium. That would be bad. Anything above that's awful. So, the number one team's coming to Neyland Stadium, and Tennessee hasn't lost at home in 2 years to Georgia. Like, fans should be excited about this game, right? This is a big game, or at least excited about the hope. We let off. Tennessee's a 10-point underdog. They're not 24-point dogs like they were against Georgia and Bama for so many years, where the whole week was, oh my gosh. Like, maybe that ends up happening. And if that's the case, feel free to freak out and say whatever you want to afterward. But this is a legitimate opportunity for Tennessee. Not an easy one, but it's not supposed to be easy when the number one team in the country is coming in. So surely to goodness, it's not 20% plus Georgia fans in Neyland Stadium. That would be a bad look for Tennessee.
Josh, I shared a story about Mike and I covering the Cotton Bowl, Mike Griffith and I covering the Cotton Bowl, where we went to some mystery bar in the middle of the night, and we were the only Caucasians there. Not that that's bad, but it was a Hispanic bar, and I think they took exception to the fact that maybe we were trying to pick up their women, and some guy showed me his knife, which I thought was a kind of a suggestion to leave. Any road stories you want to share from me and you being on the road?
Well, I don't know if anything comes to mind.
Do you want to wait for next week?
Yeah, 2001 Atlanta, I think, will always stand out. 2001 Atlanta, the SEC title game, pre-cell phone era. It's a story that it doesn't even make any sense anymore that we couldn't get in touch with each other. And I was a 16-year-old, not even intern. I wasn't even supposed to be working there. Violations were taking place with labor laws. But we got separated. I thought that it would terminate my internship at the time with the radio station, but here I am 22 years later, still employed with Cumulus Knoxville. So, yeah, that one would stand out. 2001 Atlanta, Tennessee's loss to LSU, costing you a trip to Pasadena.
Josh was such a go-getter that he wanted to go, so I called his mom and told him everything would be all right. And then it occurred to me when I lost Josh after the game, I've lost a minor. And I remember looking at my phone.
Legitimately problematic. Yeah.
Yeah. Legitimately, like, this is a felony. And I look at my phone. I've got to call his mom. And I was just about to dial the number, and I made one last check and look in the hotel room, and thank God there
Yeah, I was hanging out there with John Wilkerson. By the way, second reference of the show, and it's not his fault. I'm big on accountability, so you accept action. But if I hadn't ran into Jimmy Himes in the elevator on the way down from the Georgia Dome, and he hadn't given me an idea of where you were going and where I should go, then it could have been avoided. So not placing blame, just adding context.
It was on Himes. I'm sure that I was sure at that point that Josh had developed a heroin habit and was out with a bunch of strippers at the Pink Pony or something crazy.
I did end up on a party bus of it wasn't a party bus, but it was like the T, whatever. It was public transportation, and a bunch of LSU fans end up on the bus, and they're celebrating. They're all in a good mood and having a big time. You know how LSU fans can be anyway. And they're like, "Where are you from?" And I was like, "I don't know."
Yeah, I don't know. Not Farragut. All right, Josh, be good, man. You know we love you. Great call.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks a lot.